Hey, amazing third graders. Coming from you in Tyler's room. It's the only place that's peace and quiet right now. Let's read the next chapters in Wishtree. I hope you're enjoying this story. It hasn't even gotten to the good parts yet. I think it's kind of interesting how everyone ends up getting their names. If you care to share, maybe your parents have shared a story with you on like why you have the name you do. I would love to hear maybe why your parents named you your name. So you can shoot me an email and I'd love to hear that. I know that Tyler was always a name that I just really loved. And then his middle name is Bud, and that's after my grandpa. He is Bud as his name, so we named him after him. He's an amazing, amazing guy. So I know Tyler will turn out to be an amazing, amazing person too. So shoot me an email if you have a cool story that goes along with your name. So we're on to chapter 7. I'm not just a tree, by the way. I'm a home, a community. Folks nest on my branches, burrow between my roots, lay eggs on my leaves. And then there are my hollows. Tree hollows, holes in a trunk or branch, are not uncommon, especially in trees like me, who've been around a while. Hollows can be small enough for tiny salt and pepper chickadees, or a family of deer mice, or they can be quite large, big enough for an open-minded bear. Of course, I'm a city tree. We do not get a lot of bears around here, unless they're of the teddy bear variety. But I've hosted more than my share of raccoons, foxes, skunks, possums, and mice. One year, I was home to a lovely and exceedingly polite porcupine family. I've even sheltered a person. Long story. I have a lot of those stored up the way a squirrel hoards acorns. Hollows happen for many reasons. Woodpeckers, fallen branches, lightning, disease, burrowing insects. In my case, I have 3 hollows. 2 medium-sized ones were made by woodpeckers. The largest one happened when I was quite young. I lost a large branch that was weakened by wet snow during a nor'easter. A nor'easter is just like a really big snowstorm. It was a big wound, slow to heal. My spring leafing that year was paltry. My fall color pale and frankly embarrassing. But eventually the hole healed, widening with the help of insects, and now, about 4 feet off the ground, I have a deep oval howl. Right here, you can see it on the cover. Howls often offer protections from the elements, a secure spot to sleep and to stash your belongings. They're a safe place. Howls are proof that something bad can become something good with enough time and care and hope. Being a home to others isn't always easy. Sometimes I feel like an apartment complex with too many residents who don't get along. So a resident is like someone who lives there. Still, we make it work. There's a lot of give and take in nature. Woodpeckers hammer at my trunk, but they also eat the annoying pests. Grass cools the earth, but it also bickers with me over water. So that's kind of saying like the grass and Red the tree fight each other for the water that's in the ground. They bicker over it. Bicker's another way to argue, right? Every spring brings new residents, old friends, and more chances for compromise. This spring in particular has been quite the baby boom. Currently, I am home to owl nestlings, baby possums, and tiny raccoons. I am also visited regularly by a skunk kits who live underneath the front porch of a nearby house. This is unprecedented, meaning it's like not really heard of. Never have I sheltered so many babies. It just doesn't happen. Animals like space. They like their own territory. Normally, there would be arguing, perhaps even a stolen nest or a midnight battle. And certainly, there have been some disagreements. But I've made it clear that eating your neighbors will not be allowed while I am in charge. Me, I don't feel crowded at all having so much company. Making others feel safe is a fine way to spend your day. Chapter 8. See, I just love how all the chapters have just, a reminder of red. I have one more community member, although visitor is probably a better way to describe Samara. In January, she moved with her parents into one of the houses I shade, a tiny blue house with a sagging porch and a tidy garden. She is perhaps 10 years old or so, with wary eyes and a shy smile. Samara has the look of someone who has seen too much, someone who wants the world to quiet itself. So she has a look that she's seen too much. I wonder what that might mean. Maybe she's been in a not so great place or has experienced something that maybe is kind of scary or maybe exciting. Maybe she gets to travel the world and has experienced all different cultures. Good questions. We'll find out more about her. Soon after moving in, Samara began sneaking into the yard once her parents had fallen asleep. Even on the coldest nights, she trudged outside in her red boots and green jacket. Her breath was a frosty veil. Ooh, when you go out and you can see your breath? That's what he's saying. She would stare at the moon and at me, and sometimes at the little greenhouse next door, where a boy who looks to be about her age lives. As it grew warmer, Samar would venture out in her pajamas and robe and sit beneath me in an old blanket spattered with moonlight. Her silence was so complete, her gentleness was so apparent, that the residents would crawl from their nests of thistledown and dandelion tuft to join her. They seemed to accept her as one of their own. I don't think I would want a skunk to come cuddle up next to me, or a porcupine, or possums. Oh, possums are just the ugliest things in my mind. You might think differently, but we have them around here and I don't like them. Bongo especially loves Samar. She would flit to her shoulder and settle there. Sometimes she would say hello in a fine imitation of Samar's voice. Often Bongo gave Samar little gifts she'd found during her daily flights. A Monopoly token, the car, a gold hair ribbon, a cap from a root beer bottle. Bongo keeps a stash of odds and ends in one of my smaller hollows, which the possums kindly tolerate. You never know who might need a bribe, she likes to say. So remember, Bongo is a girl, okay? So here's a picture of Bongo's treasures. There's the Monopoly car. But her gifts to Samar weren't bribes. They were just Bongo's way of saying, I'm glad we're friends. If this were a fairy tale, I would tell you there was something magical about Samar, that she cast a spell on the animals, perhaps. Animals don't just leave their nests and burrows willingly. They are afraid of people, with good reason. But this isn't a fairy tale, and there was no spell. Animals compete for resources, just like humans. They eat one another. They fight for dominance. Nature is not always pretty or fair or kind. But sometimes surprises happen, and Samar every spring night reminded me there is beauty in stillness and grace in acceptance, and that you're never too old to be surprised. The last one we'll read is chapter 9. It's a short one. I was pleased to see Samar's family join the neighborhood. It had been a long while since we'd had any newcomers, but I knew that with time they would put down roots, just like so many other families from so many other places. I know a thing or two about roots. Not long ago, Samar came out to visit. It was 2 in the morning, late even for her. She had been crying. Her cheeks were damp. She leaned against me, and her tears were like hot rain. In her hand was a small piece of cloth, pink with little dots. Something was written on it. A wish? The first wish I'd seen in months. I wasn't surprised she knew about the Wishtree tradition. I'm kind of like a local celebrity. Samar reached up, gently pulling down my lowest branch, and tied the fabric in a loose knot. I wish, she whispered, for a friend. She glanced over at the greenhouse. That's the one next door. Behind an upstairs curtain, a shadow moved. And with that, Samar vanished back into her little blue house. Chapter 10. So we'll stop right there. We'll have to figure out what that shadow was all about, and if maybe that someone caught her going to the tree, or I don't know. Maybe it was a ghost. I don't know. All right, 8th graders, see you tomorrow.